We are going to discuss chemical bonds, which is chapter 10 in your grade 10 part 1 textbook. This is an important lesson. You will get at least one MCQ question from the topic within your first 10 questions in the final paper. That is why this lesson is important. Before we start any lesson, we have to first create a mind map so that it will help you get a clear picture of the main topic and its subtopics. It shows how everything is connected. So that is literally our heading today, bonds. So under chemical bonds, we'll be looking at ionic bonds, covalent bonds, polarity of bonds, intermolecular bonds, and finally, properties of ionic and covalent compounds. If you truly understand chemical bonds, you will be able to understand the properties of ionic and covalent compounds much more easily. And as we progress, we are going to expand this mind map so that it can turn into a quick short note. And as we move forward in this chapter, we will also learn it thoroughly, topic by topic. And while learning, we will also discuss past paper questions to help you understand how this topic appears in your exams. Before we start the lesson, there are a few important terms you need to clearly understand, like what are atoms, elements, molecules, compounds. These terms will be used again and again throughout this chapter. So make sure you understand them properly because they are the foundation of chemical bonding. Firstly, let's understand what an atom is. An atom is the smallest unit of an element that still keeps the properties of that element. So for example, if you take the hydrogen element, you can break it down to hydrogen atoms. It is made up of hydrogen atoms. Carbon element is made up of carbon atoms. So atoms, they're the smallest unit. If you try to break them down further, they're just going to give subatomic particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons. They're just charged particles. An atom cannot be broken down further because charged particles is not equal to, it won't just contain hydrogen's properties or carbon's properties. Okay, so atom is the smallest unit and it has its own properties. Every element will have its own properties. Let's understand the structure now. Structure of an atom. Okay, so you have the nucleus and surrounding the nucleus you have energy levels. Remember, these energy levels, they are also called shells. So I will be referring to them as shells from now on. Okay, so inside the nucleus, what do we have? Protons, neutrons. In the shells, what do we have? Electrons. Now, what's relevant to you is the first 20 elements in the periodic table. So let's take the 20th element, which is calcium. What is the total number of electrons in calcium? 20. So these 20 electrons have to be arranged in a specific pattern. That is what I have written as 2882, which means in the first shell it has 2 electrons, in the second shell it has 8 electrons, in the third shell it has 8 electrons, and in the final shell it has 2 electrons. Final shell can also be called as valence shell. So this is the final shell. Okay, and what is the number of electrons in the final shell or the valence shell of calcium? It is 2. Very good. Now, atoms are more stable when electrons completely fill valence shell. Now, this is very important to understand why bonds are formed in the first place. So, if atoms are not stable, then they have to find ways to become stable. So, what they're going to do? They're going to form bonds. Let's take a look at the periodic table here. So, this is the periodic table of elements. As you can see, you have periods and you have groups. Now, periods, they are horizontal rows and it shows the number of shells. Groups, they are vertical columns and they show the number of valence electrons. For example, if you take lithium, it is in the second period, so it has 2 shells, and it's in the first group, so it only has 1 electron in the valence shell. Okay. Now think about noble gases. They're in the 8th group, which means they have 8 electrons in their valence shell, which means they're at their most stable. That's why noble gases do not form bonds with other elements. Now that you have a small understanding of what an atom is, understanding molecule is easy. So a molecule is formed when 2 or more atoms are chemically bonded together. So you have a bunch of atoms. When they form bonds with each other, they can turn into molecules. So you might think, okay, that's how elements are formed with the combination of atoms. So then what exactly is the difference between the term molecule and element? Let's take a look. Here you go. Molecules are actually of 2 types. You have element molecules and you have compound molecules. Yes, molecules, combination of atoms, but you can have combination of same types of atoms. You can also have combination of different types of atoms. That's where the difference lies. So you have element, you have compound. Element is a pure substance and it only contains one type of atom. So when same atoms combine, you get element molecules. So 2 hydrogen atoms combine to give you H2 molecule, hydrogen element. Compound is where 2 or more elements chemically combine in a fixed ratio. So when you have different atoms like hydrogen atom, oxygen atom, but they're combining in a fixed ratio. So 2 hydrogen atoms combines with 1 oxygen atom and it gives you H2O, which is water. And water has its own properties. Let's say if it's combined in a different ratio, let's say 1 oxygen, 1 hydrogen, then it's going to have different property. So it shows different properties from their elements. Water is not going to show the same properties as hydrogen only or as oxygen only. Now it is a new compound molecule with its own properties.